Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird is a profound exploration of racial injustice, moral growth, and human complexity. Among the novel's many characters, Mayella Ewell occupies a uniquely pivotal and symbolic position. Though not a significant character in terms of page time, her role is central to the novel's conflict. As the accuser of Tom Robinson, Mayella acts as the catalyst for the trial that forms the core of the story's exploration of justice and prejudice. Her character embodies themes of vulnerability, the abuse of power, societal expectations, and the devastating consequences of systemic racism. Role in the narrative. Mayella Ewell is introduced during the second part of the novel, primarily through the trial of Tom Robinson. She is the daughter of Bob Ewell, a poor, abusive, and racist man who lives in squalor at the edge of Maycomb's society. The Ewells are looked down upon even by other white citizens, yet their whiteness still grants them power in a racially segregated southern town. Mayella's accusation that Tom Robinson, a black man, raped her sets the trial in motion. During the courtroom scenes, she is revealed to be a deeply conflicted and tragic character. On the witness stand, she tries to maintain the story that her father has likely forced her to tell, yet her behavior, speech, and inconsistencies suggest a deeper struggle. Atticus Finch's cross-examination exposes inconsistencies in her story and reveals that she is likely lying to conceal her shame and fear. Mayella is not a mere antagonist in the traditional sense. Her lies have devastating consequences. Tom Robinson is ultimately convicted and later killed, yet Lee portrays her not as purely malicious, but as a deeply isolated and pitiable individual caught in a cruel and unforgiving system. Her false accusation is both a product of her desperation and a reflection of the power structures that shape her world. Symbolic significance. Mayella represents a convergence of victimhood and culpability. On one hand, she is a victim of profound poverty, loneliness, and likely sexual abuse from her father. She lives in squalid conditions, bears the burden of caring for her many siblings, and has no friends or emotional support. In this way, she symbolizes the forgotten poor white South, left behind and ignored by a society preoccupied with maintaining racial hierarchies. Yet, Mayella is also a symbol of how privilege can be weaponized, even by those who are otherwise powerless. Despite her suffering, Mayella still possesses societal power over Tom Robinson by virtue of her race. She uses that power to accuse an innocent man, reinforcing the notion that even the most marginalized white person can still exploit the racist legal and social systems to their advantage. Her actions, while driven by desperation, result in tragic injustice, underscoring the ways racism permeates and corrupts justice. Furthermore, Mayella can be seen as an inverse or foil to Scout Finch, the narrator. Both are young girls growing up in a patriarchal society, but their lives diverge dramatically. Scout is loved, educated, and encouraged to think critically. Mayella, in contrast, is neglected, oppressed, and kept in ignorance. In this contrast, Harper Lee illustrates how environment and support can shape a person's moral compass. Broader implications. Mayella's actions expose the deeply embedded racism in Maycomb. The white community readily accepts her false accusation despite clear evidence of Tom's innocence. The trial reveals that the word of a poor white woman carries more weight than that of a black man, even one with integrity and a good reputation. This reflects the perverse nature of racial hierarchies in the Jim Crow South, and shows how justice is manipulated by prejudice. Mayella's story is also one of female oppression. Her father's control, society's expectations of femininity, and her lack of autonomy illustrate how young women can be trapped by both their gender and their social class. Her loneliness and longing for kindness are humanizing, especially when Tom Robinson is the only person who shows her compassion. Her attempt to reach out to him by asking for help and trying to kiss him is both a cry for connection and a transgression of deeply held racial taboos. When discovered by her father, she reacts with fear and shame, which leads to her tragic lie. Her agency is constrained not just by race, but by gender expectations and abuse. Harper Lee does not present Mayella as a purely evil figure. Instead, she is a study in moral ambiguity. Readers are invited to sympathize with her circumstances, even as they condemn her actions. This complexity forces us to grapple with uncomfortable truths. That people who commit injustices are often themselves victims, that desperation can lead to cruelty, and that the line between victim and perpetrator is not always clear-cut. Tom Robinson, the mockingbird of the novel, is destroyed by Mayella's accusation. But Mayella, too, can be seen as a corrupted mockingbird, someone who once might have had the potential for innocence and decency, but who is ultimately shaped and ruined by the circumstances of her life. Her testimony, behavior, and isolation reflect a loss of innocence brought about by neglect, abuse, and the poisonous ideologies of her environment. Conclusion: Mayella Ewell is a powerful and tragic figure in To Kill a Mockingbird. Her role is not merely that of the antagonist, but of a deeply nuanced character, who represents the intersection of race, class, gender, and power. Through her, Harper Lee exposes the systemic injustices of the American South, and the way that even those who are oppressed can become oppressors themselves. Mayella's false accusation leads to the downfall of an innocent man, but her own life is also one of loss of dignity, truth, and the possibility of redemption. Her character forces readers to confront difficult questions. What makes a person lie? How do society and upbringing shape our moral choices? And can someone be both a victim and an agent of harm? In addressing these questions, Lee adds depth and moral complexity to her novel, making To Kill a Mockingbird not just a story about race and justice, but a meditation on human frailty and the tragic consequences of a society built on fear and inequality.